Hello, my name is Charles Bori. I teach fourth grade in the dual language program at Maya Angelou Elementary. This is for competency number 8, for competency evaluation number 8, looking at competency 1.f. Candidates know, understand, and apply Washington State's approved English Language Proficiency Standards, or ELPs. So, I've been teaching in the dual language program for 4 years. This will be my 5th. Before, I've been teaching fourth grade for the last 11 years. So I'm really familiar with fourth grade standards. That's all I've taught. But I remember being introduced to the ELP standards before I was in the dual language program. And at that time, it was just kind of like, wow, what are all these standards? You know, I have all my content standards to focus on. So it was a little bit overwhelming at the time. And when I wasn't teaching in the dual language program, how they were presented to me, I kind of felt like, okay, well, maybe this doesn't apply to me right now, which now thinking back was not good. So I did not probably use them, 5 years ago as much as I should have. Now I refer to them frequently as I'm planning my lessons, and I've become pretty familiar with them, and I love how they're written so that you can see how they're related to the Common Core standards, and you can connect them in that way. And it's easier for teachers to see which type of activities the standards would lend themselves to, things that we already do, and just being able to monitor those students. And really, what it comes down to for me, as I became more familiar with them, is like, okay, I'm already doing this activity or lesson with them. How can I make it more intentional so that I can improve their language skills, or observe or monitor, or give them mostly the opportunities to practice language and prove, their proficiency. So that was something that kind of hit me the last couple of years, is making sure that I'm providing enough opportunities for my students that they can become proficient or work towards proficiency. And that I'm not just bringing them out, when it's time to fill out our ELP cards. Because before, when I was having to do that outside of the dual language program, I would usually only have anywhere between 2 to 5 classified EL students in my classroom. And so I really didn't understand the purpose. I didn't get the background. And I think there's probably a lot of teachers like that in my building, just because of the way that they were presented to us. So I know that I could do better in that area of communicating that to my team members when we go back, and understanding the ELP standards better. The levels, 1 being like the lowest proficiency and 5 being the highest, I find that I use these with all of my students, not just my EL students, because many of my native English speakers are not necessarily working at a level 5 ELP proficiency. So the way that they're written really shows you, like, okay, once they have this level 2, most of my kids are working between like level 2, level 3, and then my more proficient students are level 4. It shows you, once they are proficient in a level, what to add on in the next level for the students to continue to build on their mastery of the language. So I do appreciate how they're written. I mentioned that I love that they connect to the Common Core standards. This makes it easy and usable for teachers, and to help teachers know where they fit, especially if they're not familiar with the ELP standards. And really, I think an important thing to help other teachers understand who maybe aren't familiar with the ELP standards is that it's a really cohesive document. They go together, and it's not necessarily like extra standards that you have to teach. Most likely you're already, doing these things in your classroom. It's just another way to monitor those students. And that was something that I didn't realize when I was first introduced to them quite a few years ago. Or not quite a few years ago, but it seems like it. the specific standards that I feel like I usually struggle with students in would be the number 6, analyze and critique arguments of others. And I feel like we do a lot of group work, partner work. We do Socratic seminars, philosophical chairs. So I feel like they do good in that area, but the standard also mentions like critiquing an author's point of view. And that is something that has been more difficult for me to teach my 4th graders. And for them to be able to discuss maybe why the author wrote something in a specific way or why they used the specific points that they used. So number 6 is a challenging one for me. And then number 9 and number 10 both kind of relate to using clear speech and text. It goes back to the speaking and writing. I find that those are often the most difficult ones, or that students struggle with, is like clear, coherent writing. In 4th grade, is like they're, at least at our school in the dual English program, they do get some English writing instruction in 3rd grade, but it's not necessarily like specific ELD time where they're like developing the English language grammar. So 4th grade, like we see a lot of, spelling, grammar, those type of issues in their writing, not because it's their fault. It's just we're at that point in the program where it's time for them to start really developing their English grammar skills. And so number 10 is usually a struggle for us, and we spend a lot of time working on writing and speaking. We talk a lot in our classroom. They talk a lot just because they're constantly sharing ideas, writing ideas, sharing again. And I find that when kids write their ideas first before they share them, the conversation goes much smoother, and they're more confident in their abilities. So those are just a few of my thoughts on the ELP standards. A great document to have for reference and to continue to monitor your students and know where to push them to proficiency. And I liked at the beginning the 8 principles, that the first few ones talked about the potential of our EL students, the funds of knowledge that they bring in diversity. And I think that those are really important for teachers to keep in mind as they're instructing our EL students, is that they can do great things, and we just have to meet them where they are and continue to help them progress.